At the end of the last slides, there was a quote that said, technology changes, but good design is constant. So what we're going to do in this slide set is look at what we mean by good design in terms of pedagogy. And it's really important to recognise that over the years there's been lots of different views about what is good pedagogy, but now increasingly we have much more knowledge about how the brain works, what methods work best, human learning, to really start talking about good pedagogic design and how we go about teaching from a much more scientific point of view. There's been two main strands of research. One has been looking at what methods work best, and this has been massive work from John Hattie, and in terms of what's called an effect size, and that is that the impact it has on student attainment. Basic idea, it's greater the effect size, better the student attainment. Concurrently, again, we know more about the human brain now than what we, in the last 15 years, than what we did perhaps in the rest of human history. And now we know a lot of things that we can call cognitive scientific principles, and this is knowledge about how the brain processes information, and that if we are working with these principles, it's much more easier for students to learn effectively than if we violate them. Okay, effect size, what does it look like? Well, if it's 1.0 standard deviation, if you're not a mathematician, don't worry, but just it's a big impact. And if we look at what that kind of means, these are some of the things that would be associated with. So these are big increases in student learning. It's a technical statistical measurement. You can look at what this means itself. The purpose here is just to get across that certain methods enhance learning better, particularly in terms of time. Okay, high effect methods. From the work of John Hattie, and you can see that things like feedback have a very big effect size. And even if we go to number 12 there, just simply giving students challenging goals that are clear and they're perceived as meaningful has a pretty decent effect size. So again, you can look at this in more detail. Basic idea is that some methods are more effective than others. Okay, some other important considerations in effect size. If you combine a number of high effect size methods together in your strategy, and this is where you can be quite creative, you create what is often referred to as a Russian doll, and for those not familiar, it's dolls that fit inside one of each other. So you can have an instructional strategy with 4 or 5 other methods built into it, and these are what are known as highly effective instructional strategies. Another important point is that some of these high effect size methods, some of them take a very short period of time. Now, we've probably heard of advanced organisers that we can provide. These are summaries at the beginning of the lesson. Only take about 3 minutes, but have an effect size of 0.46. It doesn't seem massive, but it's pretty good value for 3 minutes of teaching time. Okay, scientific principles. Well, we know certain things about learning, and one of the things that's very familiar is that if you provide too much information to someone, you get cognitive overload, and the brain won't process it terribly well, even though some lecturers are still showing 45 PowerPoint slides in an hour in the afternoon, and it doesn't work terribly well. So cognitive scientific principles are things we know about the learning process that if we employ, typically will improve the predictive capability that a lesson will work much better. There's a nice summary by Willingham, and what he basically says is that just like in engineering there are principles of physics, and these will govern the way bridges are designed, but it doesn't prescribe exactly what it's going to look like, but it should predict that it's not going to fall down easily. And similarly when we teach, that if we follow these principles, that it's no guarantee that all students are going to learn, because some individual people are going to make choices, but they're much more likely over time with more students to learn better than if they're violated. Okay, here's some examples of cognitive scientific principles. I'm not going to read them through, but you can look at these yourself. And these are just kind of things that when we plan lessons, when we plan the learning experience, particularly now with the blended learning, because we've got to now customise these to the online environment and use e-tools that can actually enhance some of these principles. So that's the real creative challenge of learning design now with